our other members will join us here soon. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's City Council meeting. Our guests and any media that might be on. We want to also send out our sympathies to Mr. Franklin, who, since we had our last council meeting, or he was absent in our last council meeting due to the loss of his sister. And I know we all send out our sympathies and thoughts to him and welcome him back. We have a quorum. So at this time, Ms. Ramsey, call the roll.
Franklin. St. Columbia. Rocket.
Present. Here.
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Etherly. Ms. Ford. Okay, Ms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mayor Smith, you make a fifth.
Don's still trying to get on.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Well, I'll try to fill in some time while we try to get Don on. Since our last meeting, we had the testing at the hospital. We had 177 people tested, probably about, I don't know, 190 to 200 drive through. It was a highly successful event, thanks mostly to the hard work of a lot of other people besides me, the hospital staff, Ms. Halbert, and a lot of volunteers. The tests have been, they've done the test in the laboratories and downloaded that information to the hospital. They did not have the phone numbers with the lab results in that first, when they first downloaded it. And so they're behind on calling people. And a healthcare professional has to actually do the phone call in case there are any questions and that kind of thing. Hopefully they're catching up on that today. But that was a really good event compared to our others. It was about our sixth, I think it was our sixth drive-through. But now the health department, the Arkansas Health Department, has announced daily testing at the county health facility there on the bypass. Anybody can go. Well, I say anybody can certainly go. They'll screen you just like the tests that we did. You don't have to be symptomatic like the first test. Now that they have more tests available, the state is slowly reopening. The governor delayed phase 2, and Ms. Ramsey and I were talking, and we're not quite sure what phase 2 even is, but it's opening or slowly opening in a limited capacity. Our restaurants, our hair salons, and other things that you've read about. So that's a good thing. Our cases, I think as of today, we have 5 positives and over 300 negatives. We have 1 active case, 1 death, and the rest have recovered. So the more we have continued to have task force meetings every Friday, and we get updates from the health department and so forth, and y'all are always invited to join that whenever you want to. It's also by Zoom. The health department offering tests now is a really big thing. And as I understand it, they encourage you to bring your insurance card if you have insurance, but if you don't, they're not going to turn you away either. East Arkansas Family Medical Center continues to do drive-through testing around their area, and I imagine they will come back here. They've had a pretty successful event too. So,
Mayor,
anyways, Don on yet?
Mayor.
Okay. Yes. And I can't see everybody, so I
Isn't
might not hear you.
East Arkansas testing every day? They're testing every day.
Yes, they are. They sure are. Thank you. They have also have more tests now. Their problem, as like everybody else, was they didn't have very many tests early on, but they're starting to get more tests. So yeah, thank you for saying that. They are doing tests at their clinic on Porter Street, downtown Helena, every day as well. And you also don't have to have insurance. So if you do, there's no out of pocket or anything like that. So the more testing we do, the more representative it is, and the better an idea we have as a community. The other issue is contact tracing, which is once somebody has tested positive, then they contact the people they have been around in the last 2 weeks and notify them that they may be exposed, encourage them to get tested, and track them and also encourage them to, or in some cases mandate, that they get tested or that they quarantine. We are really literally sitting in the middle of a lot of several hot spots. Mississippi is a hot spot. Of course, we know that Forest City is because of the prison, but that has now gone on to include some of the plants up there. And so that has reached out into the community. And of course, we're not very far from Forest City. We have a lot of people who commute to Forest City to work and back. So that's something that makes me nervous. West Memphis is, but that's because it's across from Memphis. And Shelby County at one time had more positives in the entire state of Arkansas. So our healthcare facilities are not overwhelmed, which is, I don't know, people sometimes forget that's the original purpose for all of this. If you wonder, and I'm going to keep saying this because it needs to be repeated as you see people complain about the restrictions and so forth across the country. We know what happens. All you have to do, you don't even have to look to Italy. You can look at New Orleans. If you want to know what happens when you don't try to flatten the curve, they didn't have a chance to down there. They were completely overwhelmed. They had cases just as they did in Italy and other places where they had to make decisions. They had to convene their ethics committees, which hadn't been convened ever in some cases, to make decisions about who could get a ventilator and who couldn't. So the original purpose of all of this is to prevent our healthcare facilities from being overwhelmed. And right now they aren't here. So that's good news. Okay. Any other questions? But thank you. I think that was Monica. Thank you for pointing that out. So the health department, East Arkansas Family Medical Center on Porter Street, are places, and of course your general practitioner also reach out to them. People should reach out to them. And then of course the health department website, which is also linked through our New City website, healthyarkansas.org or .gov. I just forget. But there's a link on our website. It has lots of updates and good information as well. There's Don. Okay. So if there are no other questions, pause a minute on that. It was just, but I'd say mostly good news for our community at this point. There's a concern that there'll be a spike over the summer, and I think we still have to be vigilant. And it's, it's kind of, if you're not paying a lot of attention, you think, well, we don't have a problem because we don't have it here as much as other places. But when you compare ourselves to places that have had a lot of it, you can see really quickly that all of these measures do make a difference. So one of the metrics that WHO uses is 10%, 30 people for every 1,000 population. So depending on how many people you think we have, and then those tests are for the county, not just for the city. So you really need to look at the county population, although most of them are from the city. We also had a lot of people test here from Mariana, Holly Grove, places like that. And those tests went back to those counties. But we're over 300. So 30, we're a little bit over 10,000 people, if you look at it that way. And then you want to be somewhere, they say different things, but if you're below 5% of that amount, of that number tested that come up positive, you're doing really well. And right now we're way below that. So let's hope we stay in that room. Okay, moving down our list, as Derek Turner joined us. I don't think he's going to make the meeting tonight, but I want to make sure. I can't always tell who's on here. So I'll try to bring that up and discuss that to the best of my ability. I don't have the financial report for you for April, but the point on your agenda that says line item adjustments for fire department overtime and possible professional services refers to something I think y'all are familiar with, which is that we're up against our appropriations limit on overtime for the fire department. And the only way we can continue in this method would be for y'all to approve an additional appropriation to cover that overtime so that we can deliver them the overtime checks that they have worked for. Derek's not here to give you those numbers, and I don't have those numbers in front of me. Did we pass those out?
I have
Anybody have?
memo. I think it's 14,000 that we need to let these checks go.
I have a question about that.
Mr. Franklin?
So the money, I know I got some slack about it, about the code enforcement position. That's the reason why I'm trying my best to make sure we can have some money on hand in case something like this happens. So now, Mayor, you can't agree with me that you don't know, you didn't know where things was going to go. So now here we are needing this money. So that's why I closed the code enforcement position, because we should have enough money left over from that spot that Mr. Etherly and I made sure that we froze so we could use that money just in case. Well, that position will no longer be available for this year once we use that money, because there's no more money that we can borrow from and take from. Right or wrong, Miss Sandy?
Yeah.
So let's note that, Mr. Mayor, that the city is trying, the city council is trying to make ways to stop a lot of the bleeding, because once this over with, like everything that happens is going to get blamed on COVID-19, and we're going to have to wait till the governor or the federal government release some funding back to us. Well, we see how this going now. So we have to make sure that we take responsibility and try to stop some of the bleeding, because we don't want something like this to happen in another department. Because how much money do we have on hand? Mr. Turner's not here to answer that question, but how much money will we have in case something, what if the police department reach their max? So what are we going to do about that when they reach their max?
Well, as you pointed out, Mr. Turner's not here to answer that question, but I think what he would say is the reason for not paying the overtime is because it wasn't appropriated, and we can't do it without an appropriations. And this, that's the main reason for it.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, as you know,
In other words, y'all have to approve appropriations in order to be able to pay the overtime.
And I understand it, but if we don't get the money for the code enforcement, the position that we froze, where the money's going to come from? They're out of money, and you know the policy was when they're out of money, they're out of money, because we have no other resources. You know, we're not collecting a lot of money because due to the coronavirus, the city's not getting a lot of business. And you know, franchise fees gonna change. Suddenly it's out of business now, so we're gonna lose some of that money. So we have to let our employees know that, hey, you have to be careful because we don't have any money. Businesses are shut down due to the COVID. So we need to make sure that we tell they're essential workers. We need them. But what happens when all the finances is gone? See, because it's projects and things that you're gonna study bring to the city council. Once you feel like, oh, I need the council approval, you're gonna bring them to us and say, hey, this happened due to COVID. We need this done. We need to try to figure out how can we set how much. Why is Mr. Turner not here so we can answer this question? How much money do we have on hand? Because we do need coding.
I can give you some basic answers to that question. The financial hit for COVID hasn't directly hit us yet. We expect it to in the next month or two, though, as other cities and projections have come. So we're trying to be proactive on that instead of reactive. So we do expect to take a hit in the next couple of months, but we haven't so far. The city has done extremely well financially in the last year, but we can definitely always do better. The main issue with the fire department overtime is just that it hasn't had an appropriations for it, and y'all are the only ones who can do that, as you know. So I just and then on the franchise fees, I don't know unless you know something I don't. That Suddenlink has gone out of business. They're I think maybe they closed their office. I've heard different things about whether that's permanent or not. Their local office.
Well,
I don't know if they've actually gone out of business, which means they still have to pay franchise fees. They still have a franchise with the city. But having said that,
They have
forward,
closed their office permanently.
Okay, but their business is still.
Yes,
They haven't.
it's just the office
So the
that's
franchise,
closed.
and that's bad because we want people to be employed there, among other reasons, customer service. But their franchise fees will still be due and still have to be paid. But you're absolutely right. In the next couple of months, as we all know, we're sort of bracing for some impact on sales tax and a few other things. So we want to be proactive, not reactive to that.
I have
any other?
Yeah, I have a.
Yeah. Don, go ahead.
I'm back to, and you may know where I'm going on this. I'm going back to square one. I think we appropriated $100,000 in overtime or for overtime at the beginning of the year. Why did we go over that $100,000? Who is responsible, and why was there no, stop sign before they got there? Because I'm just, when I got that, we got an email or something that said they had that we were about to cross that threshold. I have no understanding. The fire department, this is what they told us at the beginning of the year. They were fully staffed. Overtime would be reduced. No issue is what we were led to believe. Why are we here? And I don't understand how we spent $100,000 in less than half a year.
Well, that's a good question. I don't have the chief or the treasurer here to answer it, but I do know that overtime is less now than it has been historically. Last year, the years preceding that, and pretty dramatically down. But I guess one answer for that is that we didn't have enough appropriated to begin with. Perhaps I think the budget pretty much, and like I said, I feel uncomfortable going too far into that subject because Mr. Turner might want to correct me on those, and he's not here. But I guess to make a long story short, they have reduced their overtime. Their reports have, at least they're going in the right direction, to the wrong direction. other part of that is, as if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Ramsey can correct me, but the raises, since you give time and a half for overtime, the raises actually, if you're not careful, are actually going to increase your overtime, or at least more than you thought it would, because they're being paid more.
Excuse me. Can somebody tell me who, I'm like Mr. Etherly, who's in charge of the people who actually have been reported for abuse of overtime? It's been situations where I call in sick today and use my sick day, and then I go in tomorrow for Don and he calls in sick. So that means we're getting paid for both things, and that means that that's where the overtimes come. Who's responsible for keeping an eye on that?
Well, ultimately, the chief has been. I will tell you that this past week, Derek Turner and myself and the assistant fire chief, Roderick, and others have devised a way to stop that. And so basically we stopped that practice, and a few other things designed to reduce it. That's a good question. Very good question. And you're probably going to hear more about that here in the next few weeks, because some people won't like that, you know, who have been doing that. So good question. But we are stopping it, and we've been working on it for a couple of weeks. We finally got it in writing. It's on my desk, and I just I wanted to get through this before we implemented it. It may not matter if we don't appropriate money.
I have this question as well. You know, the city has had a problem with abuse for the longest, and you know, I know you the mayor. You said the buck stopped with you, but since you've been here, we've had a person who have stole $50,000 in overtime. We had got that corrected. Still got people still in time doing what they want to do off the city's dime, and you know, if we try to tell you what's going on, it falls by the wayside. How can people trust us with their tax dollar? And you got people studying doing the same old thing. And as a council person, I see it. And when I call it to the carpet, it gets swept up under the rug. That's not my job to hold people accountable. It's my job to let the mayor know. And the mayor should handle it from there. But it's like the same thing is going on over and over and over. I see a lot of stuff that goes on with overtime in the code enforcement, overtime in the sanitation, overtime in the water department. When it's detailed to us and explained to us on what is going on, we can better address it. But I can't keep trying to address stuff that the same thing is happening over and over. I understand we all want political points and want our name in the paper. We want to be shown on Facebook and all that stuff. But that doesn't matter when the city will end up going bankrupt if we don't. The council is trying to hold people accountable, and I'm gonna stop that and let the mayor do his job. I'm gonna hold the mayor accountable, because you should have some policy set in place with your department heads. If you all are holding department heads meetings once a week, you do a Zoom every 2 weeks. Once a week, your department heads should let you know, hey, this is where we are. This is why we got this overtime. Mr. Etherly had said it better than anybody. Let us know why. Don't wait till we get here and say, hey, I need this money, because it's too late. The damage has already been done. When we set the budget, we did overtime, and they promised us, each department promised us that, hey, we're going to cut down. If y'all give us this raise and give us this promotion pay, we're going to do this right here. And here we are again. At the same point. My thing is when are you going to say, hey, I'm going to be aggressive on my department heads because I know the city council is watching. Now, we'll start spending more. We're going to lose some money. And you said that you don't see a loss yet. Well, how can you not see a loss? And the county is already saying that they don't have to slow down on spending due to the COVID.
Well, you said a lot in there. Let me say also, you know, we had more urgent than the COVID crisis was the Easter storm. We did have an uptick in more overtime, and yet we still had less overtime in the fire department than we usually do. Financially, the city hasn't done this well in years, so I'm not going to buy that whole financial bankruptcy stuff, because in the last year we all worked very hard, and y'all were part of it, but we worked very hard to make sure we steered away from that, and we ended up $600,000 less than what our budget was overall. So if you're looking at total expenditures, we haven't done this well in years.
Mr. Mayor.
So now, I'll let you talk, Mr. Franklin. As far as the $50,000 in abuse that you allege, as you know, you made a motion for a state police investigation that was reported on at the last meeting. I don't think you were able to be there, but my understanding is, at least to this point, they haven't found anything. At least if it has been found, it certainly hadn't been brought to my attention when it comes to.
It would be
anything
when
like
you said the TV.
Now, I'll let you speak. Now, finally, and I will wrap up, the overtime issue is important. And we've been developing policies, and I think, and we have, even in spite of the Easter storm, our department has had less overtime, in spite of the raises. Overtime is a fact of life. In many cases with emergency organizations like the police and fire department. The problem is that we use the same category as we've used in years. And in most years, you pass a cleanup budget. And this year, you don't want to pass a cleanup budget. So we're going to have to go methodically, one appropriation at a time, whenever we get outside of a category. If that's how you want to do it, that is fine with me. This is one of those cases where if you want to adjust the budget as we go, you have that opportunity. If you don't want to do it, then that's okay too. That's your prerogative. That's the prerogative of the city council. Then you don't have to approve this, an increase in appropriations if you don't want to. We just won't pay it. It's just that simple. So, having said that, I'm trying to move on down our list of things. We have, longer agenda. The question for the council is: do you want to appropriate the money for overtime or not?
Mayor,
yes or no?
I have a question. I know I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I do know this much. It has been sent to Tara Murray a week ago. So I think Tara Murray, we need to try to figure out. We need to talk to Tara Murray to investigate it, not us. Tara Murray needs to investigate this. And when you was talking about overtime and how the city's doing better, Mr. Mayor, the week after, I didn't want to take the picture in the paper when you said we was out of debt, because that cannot be true, because the next week, Miss Ramsey had posted on her door that we could not make payroll. They had to wait. So let's be clear. We want things to sound good, and we don't want to look bad on your watch, but we get emails saying that, hey, we have to slow down on this, or we have to wait on payroll because people are spending. See, I know if that's the case, the fire department, the sanitation department was out as well, because I was out during the Easter storm, pulling trees out of the way so people can get by. And I don't charge a dime. So the sanitation should have some overtime as well as the fire department. So they were out all times of night, and they still out now picking up trees off the side of the road. And they still haven't accumulated much overtime as the fire department, much overtime as the police department. So let's be clear. Let's be clear. See, like Mr. Turner's not here now, and it's like we just talking in the wind. But we know, you know what the finances are. You know we're not doing as well as it seems, because I don't know no business besides Walmart and retail stores that are doing good due to this COVID-19. City Hall is not open. We're not writing as many permits as we could be writing. We're not doing the business that we would normally do due to social distancing. Let's be clear. Let's not try. I don't want to be in the paper because I'm saying what people want to hear. I'm saying what's truthful. That our cash on here may not be as much as you telling the people it is. The city is not. We trying to keep our head above water, and we was doing so good. We weren't trying to find money to pay the fire department.
Mr. Franklin, I'm going to say this and then we'll move on. If the council doesn't want to act, that's fine. But the bottom line is we did so well last year because I made sure we spent a lot less in personnel costs than we have in a long time. We have cash flow issues like many businesses or farmers. You get your revenue at different times and yet your bills are due every month. A city, unlike a business or a farmer, can't go to the bank and get an operational loan. So when Miss Sandy says we have to wait to pay a bill to make payroll, she's talking about a cash flow issue. That's not the same thing as the overall finances of the city. So having said all that, I'm going to move on down to the next item of the agenda unless there's anybody that wants to do anything.
I have a question.
Basically,
I have a
council
question.
at this point.
I have
Yes,
a
Ms.
question.
Crockett.
My question is,
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
saying that if we do not move the money and appropriate the money, that you just won't pay the people the overtime. But if these people have worked those hours, are we not setting ourselves up for another lawsuit? And my other question is, how do you pay overtime to one person in a department and don't pay it to the other person because you said the money is not there? Because basically what you're saying, you're asking for money for the fire department, but don't you have more departments that need more appropriations for their overtime?
That was my next question.
Well, they haven't bounced up against the appropriation yet.
Oh,
The
yeah,
issue-
yes, they have. One of the code enforcement was not paid for his overtime because they said the money was not there.
Well, that's not because we don't have enough money. It's because we don't have any money in code enforcement for overtime that I'm aware of. That's what I was told.
So then how did one person get paid in code enforcement
That's not-
for overtime and the other one did not?
Because that person's getting paid from overtime at the street department for the work that they're doing.
How is that
on
possible,
dog
Mayor?
pit. And
How is that possible,
Well,
Mayor? He only has one
because-
job. He only has one job. And that's
Because it's
code enforcement.
appropriated.
No,
because
it's not
it's
appropriate for him. It's not appropriated for him because he's the code enforcer. He's not the dog catcher. Now, if he has
Yes,
two
he
different
is.
jobs, okay, so he has two different jobs with the city?
Yes, ma'am. He
Okay,
has
so he-
many duties.
No, I didn't say duties. I said jobs.
But yes, ma'am, he's doing the work on one salary. He's also doing most of the work on animal control, and he gets paid overtime because most of that is on weekends and after hours. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
But how do you do that? Because is that not double dipping?
No,
Mr.
it's
Eppley, can you help me
appropriated.
with this? If that's not part of his job description, is it possible to pay the overtime to someone out of another budget?
And I'm sorry, I'm not exactly following what the facts are. Maybe perhaps Andre can.
Oh, I didn't know Andre was on here.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
And I'm struggling with this phone. My computer won't log in, so I'm sorry. I'm having.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know Andre was on here. Mr. Valley, can you help me?
Yes. Well, one thing I just texted the group was if they've worked overtime, they need to be paid. We have to come up with remedies as to how to ease overtime. Because under the Fair Labor Standards Act, once you work the hours, you have to be paid. And that's an easy lawsuit for anybody if we're not going to pay them for the hours they work. You have to curtail it on the front end because once they work the hours, they themselves, the Fair Labor Standards Board can come in if they get a report, investigate you, and make you pay all the back overtime. I think that happened with the Sheriff Department some years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. But if they
at the
worked
same
overtime.
time, but Andre, at the same time, the people not paying the overtime it's not administration because it has to be appropriated. we're not allowed to spend it if it's not appropriate. So how do you resolve that conflict? The only way to resolve that is for the council to approve that appropriations.
I understand, but the thing about it, what I was saying is that on the front end, something had to happen to stop obtaining all the overtime. I hear the council's concerned about $100,000 being spent in less than 5 months. I don't know what the issue is. That's a day-to-day issue. I don't know why or the reason. I think part of the frustration that's been ongoing for a while is people say that they have to work the hours. What Mr. Etherly keeps asking about is something simple: is okay, show me why you had to work all the hours, and that's the nagging question that he keeps asking at all these meetings. Well, show me it's not just a fact that you worked it and you feel well you had to do it. They're not getting the information as to why they had to do it, and I think that's part of the disconnect between the two parties as I've listened to this conversation over the past year. So there needs to be some explanation from the department heads as to, well, Andre Valla worked overtime because he had to do this and do this, and here's a list of things he had to do, and this is why we need it, and those explanations. I think there needs some transparency, and you may get off of this issue, but we keep going back and forth. The mayor cited a very practical issue. He can't spend the money, and he can't allow them to work the overtime, but once they work it, he's compelled by one federal law saying you got to pay it, but state law saying he can't do deficit spending. And so the issue has to be addressed that's related to an appropriation. And the issue also has to be addressed as to day-to-day as to how do we prevent them from having, at this pace, another $100,000, $150,000 in overtime.
I support, and I'll say this just to everybody at the table. At this point, I only see two possible solutions. This has been ongoing for years. It never stops, it never ends. There's always some quick fix that these departments have. If you give us this, if you give us that, then we won't have to do it anymore. And time again, month after month, year after year, it's the same thing over and over again. My first thing is I would not be opposed to removing every single dime of pay increase that we've given them this year and go back to square one. The second thing is, between now and the next meeting, I intend to personally get with the city attorney to draft an ordinance that will put in place a protocol for which every employee must follow to get overtime. And if they do not, they will waive their overtime pay in any litigation that they may have. And being an employee of the city would make this policy mandatory, because it makes no sense whatsoever. I am tired of it. I'm tired of it. It's just a game. Nobody wants to hold them to it. And so at this point, I think the action has to come from the council. It hasn't come from the mayor's office in the entire time that I've been on the council. That's no shot at any individual mayor. It's at all of them. It hasn't come. It hasn't come from any department head during the entire time that I've been on the council. That's at all of them. Not any individual, but at all of them. And it's going to have to come from the council. If it doesn't, it's never going to stop.
Well, let me just say, I've been asking for the city council to do something like that for a long time. So I definitely welcome it, Mr. Etherly. I think it's great. We do have some policies, and we'll share those with you because we've worked hard on them. And I would submit, the first thing I did as mayor was to try and shut down overtime as much as I could. We spent a lot less on overtime than we have, and I'm told that the treasurer tells me and others that we've spent less on overtime in the fire department than we have before this year, but we didn't appropriate enough for it. Overall, if you look at the total finances of the city, our personnel costs have gone way down and continue to and will need to go down further probably in the next quarter. And we've been talking about that too because of the COVID issues that we're probably about to face. But the short answer is I welcome that. So did we want to take any action tonight on the appropriations for additional overtime or not? That would be the question before the council. And if we don't want to act on it, we can go down the agenda.
Well, based on the city attorney's position that we're going to have to pay it anyway, And my additional statement that I intend to work with the city attorney to implement a policy so that we don't end up here again. I would move to approve the additional overtime that has been incurred above and beyond what was appropriated in the 2020 budget, without granting any additional money for overtime. So if I can be clear about that, my motion is to approve the amount that was submitted to us by the treasurer with no additional dollars allotted.
A second.
Motion made by Mr. Etherly and seconded by Ms. Crockett. Just a question on information. Ms. Ramsey, do we have that dollar amount we can make sure is included in this motion?
I don't have the treasurer's in front of me. It's around 14.5, I believe, but I can get that first thing in the morning and let everybody know the exact amount.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions or other discussion about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
St. Columbia.
Yes.
Okay, Franklin,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
5 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, motion passes. Moving down the agenda, we have the Advertising and Tourist Promotion Commission appointments. Mr. Etherly, you're recognized.
Yes, we have the AMP Commission at its last meeting, which has been pre-COVID. We voted to submit 2 new names for replacing 2 individuals who are leaving the AMP Commission or who have left the AMP Commission. Those would be LaToya Harris, who served for a number of years. She's an owner of the Bistro Bar and Grill on Plaza Street. She no longer desired to serve. And Kathy Cunningham, who has been the chairperson for the AMP Commission for a number of years, who serves in the at-large position. She's moving away from the community. AMP met, I don't recall the specific date. Like I said, it was pre-COVID, before the shutdown. And we have submitted 2 names for replacement. Those would be Misty Staley. Ms. Staley will qualify to serve on AMP because she runs an Airbnb, which pays the AMP or the hamburger tax, buying through its collections as a lodging institution or organization. And then the other would be Adrian Corbin. Now, Ms. Corbin has been nominated to serve in the at-large position, which means you don't have to come from the industry. So she's been nominated to replace Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Corbin served about time may have gotten away from me, about 2+ years ago. She was the executive director for AMP for nearly a year. She was our very first executive director. And she understands all the ins and outs of the AMP Commission. She used to assist with a number of events and coordinating AMP with a lot of advertising promotion. The boats that come in, she would go down to help meet and greet people. She just did a lot of things, and she understands a lot of what we do and how it works. And so those are the 2 individuals that have been submitted by AMP, and consistent with the regulations, and the council would have to approve those to take their seats on AMP.
Thank you, Mr. Etherly. So any questions or comments, Mr. Etherly, about at this time?
Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Ms. Corbin, Mr. Mayor, I move to nominate Ms. Adrian Corbin for the at-large position for the AMP Commission.
I'll second that motion.
All right, Mr. Franklin moves to nominate Adrian, or place Adrian Corbin at the at-large position on the AMP Commission. Mr. Ellie seconds the motion. Any questions, comments? Call roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
5 yes.
The motion passes. So the next candidate would be Misty Staley.
So moved.
Second.
I think that was Ms. Davis that made the motion. Did I
Yes.
get that right? Who seconded the motion?
Franklin.
I didn't catch. Franklin seconded the motion. Okay, any conversation, discussion, questions there? Okay, call roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Etheridge.
Yes.
5 yes.
All right, motion passes. I just have a general question that's about all commissions. And y'all have been here longer than I have, so I know each commission has its own statutory or basis in either code or, in either city's municipal code or state or both. But they all have some version of terms, staggered terms and appointments. One of the things that I've noticed since I've been there is that most of the people on these commissions, until tonight anyway, are the same people that have been on there for years, and they don't seem to have any staggered terms that I can find anywhere. They're supposed to be staggered. They're supposed to be, so, one question would be, what are the staggered terms on the A&P commission and the other commissions, and how do we find out what those are? Do we just ask each commission? Any comments or? People have asked me about that, and I don't really have an answer. I've looked into it, and I don't see where members have been, where the staggered terms and all that has really been followed. So
It's your genesis is whatever ordinance created it. Because the initial people should have been appointed. The issue in Arkansas is there is no vacancy in public office, so some people continue to roll over. Because you're correct, there hadn't been nominations either from the committees to continue the term. But that's all of them. Because I don't think we've appointed anyone to the airport commission in years. These are the appointments to A&P, but other commissions also is the same thing, man. Yeah. But the ordinance would dictate it, and the ordinances are based on statute.
Mr. Valley.
So it would be
Yes. Who asked me a question?
I just let you know, we appointed some to the historical commission. I think the lady down at Handcrafts, we appointed Lois D. Burrell. We have appointed some folks to the Helena Housing Authority before it was disbanded. We put somebody on the Port Authority and the Airport Commission in recent years.
I guess my question was more about the terms themselves, because most of them, I think, have staggered terms, 2 years, 4 years, that sort of thing, before they come up for reappointment. And I just didn't see any evidence that any of the commissions were really even trying to follow that. I could be wrong, though. That's why I'm asking y'all. You've been here longer than I have. All right.
I can speak for A&P. On A&P, we did some appointments or reappointments last year, and there were actually no vacancies due this year, except that we had one individual, Ms. Harris, who decided she didn't want to serve anymore, and Ms. Cunningham, who's leaving. I actually do have the terms by individual and by years. I don't have them in front of me right now, so. What I'll do is, if anybody wants them, I'll dig them out from somewhere, and make them available. But they are staggered, and we actually do internally keep up with those terms on it.
Well, go ahead.
Who are the current members? Because my notes, I remember Dominique Campbell from Wendy's, Kathy Cunningham was at large, Monica Davis, and you were all the city council members. Pat Robinson from Sonic and Toya Harris Bistro. Was that everybody that was on there?
No, you have Donna Parker from the Tourist and Information Center.
Yeah, Donna Parker. That's right. Tourism information.
And
After
she's
Miss Garofa's
new.
left.
She's new. Fairly new.
Yeah, her term's not up. And then you have the 2 council members, which would be myself and Ms. Davis.
Right, I named y'all already.
Right. Okay.
So at this point, Ms. Donna Parker, Ms. Dominique Campbell, you just appointed not Toya Harris. You just appointed Miss Corbin. You have Monica Davis, City Council, Don Anthony, City Council, Pat Robertson, and what's the appointment for Toya Harris position?
Misty Staley.
Mrs. Staley. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. St. Columbia?
yes, I'd recommend to solve the problem since Don has the information that he provided to you and the council as to the positions and their years to be staggered. We do have the information and it should be given to you since you didn't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's, a lot of people seem to think the mayor has something to do with these commissions, but most of that authority has been stripped of the mayor, from what I can tell. But I do think there's, there are other people out there that want to serve on these commissions, and they've asked me questions about it and asked me about, why they never come up for renewal. And of course, I've looked into it, but I don't see an answer in. I don't know anybody who does have an answer. But I think this is good. It's good appointments, but just in the interest of transparency, I might send a letter out to the different commissions and ask them to report to me on what terms, which terms are for who, and try to dig down in their minutes or wherever and find out where those are, so that people can have a better sense. But I'm not. There's not anybody on any commissions that I can think of that I wouldn't want on there anyway. But I get the question a lot from people who have an interest in being on these commissions. So I think it would be good to it'd be a good time now to refresh that and look at it and see whose terms are when and what the process is on each commission and what they do and all that kind of stuff. Mr. Franklin, I think.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, we got an email some years ago on each commission. If I find it, I'll forward it to you. But like
right.
the commission, what they used to do is commission with they like with the Housing Authority Board. When Mr. Rochester Johnson decided he wasn't going to run anymore, the Housing Authority they asked us to submit a name. The person has to live in Phillips County, well, in Helena-West on it. And if they lived in the city limits, we would vote on it. I think each term, like Ms. Morrell on the Historical Commission, her term was like 6 years. So they run like 2, 4, and 6 years. Like that's how all of them run out. Since the Airport Commission, I think Buff, what's the guy name? Buff Brothers. He's him and another guy that I don't know if he lived Rodell. Him and Rodell and somebody else is on that. And when we first started this, we were trying to see what their terms was. They sent us something, but we never get their financial reports. We've been asking for that. Mr. Huff and I was asking for a lot of information about these commissions. Like how do they meet? How do they spend their money? What they do with their money? If are they a part of the city? And these kind of things. So I do remember Ms. Ramsey sent us out an email. So I'm pretty sure if I did get my email from my other phones, there's a term limit on everybody. Some like maybe 2, 4, and 6 years. So the last person may get is optional. Somebody may get 2 years, somebody may get 4 years, but there's term staggers like that. So, from what I remember.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Yeah, if you find that, forward it to me. I'd appreciate it. Okay, moving down the agenda. If there's no other issues about that, or questions, comments, it's hard for me to tell on Zoom. So just interrupt me. But if not, if no objection, we'll move on down. The next issue on the is a resolution to amend the 2019 budget. Mr. Turner was going to discuss that. We've discussed that at every meeting. Again, it's a cleanup budget for 2019, fiscal year 2019, to correct some of the categories so that we'll have a good audit. It's something that's been done every year. I'm not going to spend a lot of time belaboring it every meeting, and Mr. Turner's not here either, but it's on our agenda. So, any questions, comments about that tonight?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. St. Columbia?
I don't know why this has come up the last 4 meetings, I believe, and it's a normal thing that we do is issue a cleanup budget because we need the treasurer, and you both have recommended that we do that, and I can't understand. I've made the motion the last 3 meetings, and it fails to get a second. I'm in favor, personally, of passing this motion, and doesn't seem anyone's interested in cleaning up the budget. So I again will make the motion that we pass the cleanup budget.
Before you motion, Mr. St. Columbia, I got a question.
He's already made the motion. Mr. St. You can ask your question in a minute, though. Mr. St. Columbia makes the motion to adopt the cleanup budget as proposed, resolution as proposed for the 2019 fiscal year budget. Is there a second? Okay, here no second. The motion dies on the floor. Mr. Franklin, you have a question?
Yeah, well, Mr. St. Columbia, I don't know why you don't remember the city council didn't pass a budget a couple of years ago because there were some things under the Willis administration that wasn't done properly. And I'm pretty sure the reason why I'm not in favor is been some spending that we didn't approve in the cleanup budget. And if we approve this, that take care of the unapproved spending that was done. So that's why I'm not in favor of it. It's been some spending done without council approval, and that's just why I'm not going to do it. So that's just my reason to tell you that it's been some stuff that we were told we asked not to be paid because it didn't come by the city council, and I'm not going to approve it. You can put it on there next time, and I will still be in the same position because we didn't approve it. It was done illegally. That's just my reason. That's me. So I want y'all to quote me right when you say it. I said that some spending had been done without council approval, and I don't know how Mr. St. Columbia don't remember that. We had a whole hour conversation about spending that was not brought to the table because the paper quote be saying, telling the mayor, you have to come to us before you spend this over your spending authority. You have to come to us. I'm still there.
Well, let me say, just so the public understands if they're listening, that the reason, first of all, cleanup budgets have been approved repeatedly for years, and we did one last year. The process that's been used in the past is and it's pretty common for cities all over Arkansas, to the extent that the auditors expect to see it so that they can finish their work, that rather than having to have a council meeting every time, there are shifts in cleanup budgets. It's pretty routine in budgeting period. In this case, we actually got ahead on our bills for the first time in a long time. We had enough money to pay our debt and our bills, so we paid the Municipal League Legal Defense Fund twice in 1 year instead of once in 1 year, and we paid it the first one late and the second one on time, but it was in the same fiscal year, and a couple of other similar issues. So we're actually needing to clean it up because we did such a good job last year financially. Now, the other reason, I think, if Mr. Turner were here, he would agree, that's the way it's been done in the past. If you don't want to do that this year or in the future, that's quite all right with me. I really, it is. We'll do it every single time and adjust as we go. But it's pretty common. The only thing this is going to achieve is get us written up in legislative audit. We already have, not that, We already have a bad reputation because of previous audits in previous years. We've done better in recent years, and that includes before I got here, not just since I've been here. And we continue to get better. We need to continue that process, and this is a step backwards. But that's in. But the motion has not gotten a second, so we're going to move on down to the ordinance to avoid conflict, allowing Attorney Chuck Halbert to act as a prosecutor for district court. And I think Andre, that's yours.
Yes, man, Andre Valley. This is an ordinance we passed in 2017. The last Mr. Halbert served in the capacity. We discussed this at the last council meeting. What this ordinance simply does is identical to one passed in 2017, but the auditors wanted to make sure it's passed. The only issue is that Miss Helen Halbert is his wife, and she's the mayor's chief of staff. And so because it is perceived as he is her family member, and contract when you given to family members of city employees or officials, they have a limit on them according to our ordinance of $2,500. So you have to approve them by ordinance to make sure that there's transparency with the issue. And so that's the purpose of the ordinance, but you've passed it before in 2017. Mr. Chuck Halbert is a deputy prosecutor for the Phillips County. He was hired by the prosecutor, Todd Murray, and he handles conflicts. Specifically, he handles a portion of the cases in which my brother, James Valley, is the attorney. We discussed that at the last council meeting. I don't prosecute cases against James Valley for the appearance of impropriety. I don't want people to be saying that I roll over for my brother or do any of that kind of thing and dismiss cases for him or any of that kind of thing. And so that's why the deputy prosecutor office handle all of the cases involving James Valley. We did not have to pass one for Amy Boyd because she's not related to anybody in the city that I'm aware of.
So moved.
Is that a motion to place on to suspend the rule, place on the third and final reading the title only?
Yes, sir, Mr. Attorney.
Okay. There's been a motion for the ordinance. What number ordinance is it, Sandy?
10.
Ordinance number 10. To avoid conflict of interest regarding Attorney Chuck Halbert to act as prosecutor for district court. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Ms. Crockett? I can tell.
That's me.
Davis? Oh,
That's
Evelyn. I'm sorry.
That's it.
My apologies. My hearing's not that good either. If it helps, it makes you feeling better. Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? If not, call the roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, motion passes. At the next time on the budget.
Wait a minute, you didn't adopt it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andre.
We need a motion to adopt it.
So
So
moved.
On his phone, so he might not be able to answer, but
Who made that motion?
I had to text him twice earlier. He didn't respond. For me and Wanda here.
I heard Ms. Crockett make the motion. Ms.
Second.
Davis second the motion for final passage of ordinance number 2 regarding conflict of interest. Any other questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Etherly.
Yes.
Thank you. 5 yes.
Okay. Do we need an emergency clause or any of that stuff on this one? Andre, do we need an emergency clause or anything on this one?
As an
Andre?
emergency clause, I don't have it right in front of me. I was trying to pull it up on my phone because I can't pull it up on my computer. I was trying to pull it up on my phone. I sent an email today.
Does it have an emergency clause in it?
Yes, it does. Section 5 is the emergency clause.
Yeah, you need a motion to adopt the emergency clause. Thank you.
Second.
Who made the motion? I couldn't tell.
Mr. Franklin.
Mr. Franklin moved the emergency clause on ordinance number 10. Ms. Crockett seconded the motion. Any other questions, comments? If not, call the roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Esterly,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Going to the next to last item on the agenda, the criminal justice complex. Mr. Valley, you want to?
Okay, the criminal justice complex is my understanding. I received documentation from the mayor, and I haven't spoken to Amy Board. At the last time we discussed this, the city council adopted and approved a contract that was drafted by me. I'm waiting on a updated floor plan. There's an issue with the 911 system. They said they own it, and it's their system. They pay all the bills on it, and so they're saying it was never our system. The other issue is the floor plan, because they said we still would get the same square footage, but I wanted to make sure that the contract has the floor plan if you all going to continue with it. The mayor has reviewed also the ordinances. They said it went all the way back to Ken Stoner and the grant that was given by, wait a minute, I'm talking as if y'all know what I'm talking about. Initially, the 911 system was done by a grant from East Arkansas Planning to the county. And the county has taken financial responsibility for the 911 system from its inception. And we have one house in the sheriff's department and one house in our office, and the police department. They said that they're the owners, and they still have been paying on it from the time it was done until now. And the city does not pay anything on the 911 system. So they said the 911 system is theirs. And so that's their position. Why there's only in the floor plan one 911 system, and that's if you move the police department there will only be one 911 system, one room. As it relates to the floor plan, the architect has changed some of the things because one of the entities that was supposed to be there is not going to be there, and so they reworked the floor plan. But I was trying to get that to make sure that it's clear as to the area that we would have, but you've approved it once with the old floor plan and with the condition of the 911 system, but they're saying that you never owned it, it's ours, you never paid anything on it. When I talked to his attorney about it, I think that when he reached us, he doesn't see we paid anything on it. I didn't talk to Ms. Ramsey. Ms. Ramsey, have we ever paid anything on 911 system?
No, sir.
Okay. And so that's what the issue was with the 911 system. The only issue I have right now, we need an accurate floor plan to make sure we attach that to the amended agreement. And so I think the body has already voted for you to move, but we need to finalize those things. And I believe what I would prefer you to do, if you still stick by that vote, is that you just give the mayor and I authority to finalize whatever the things are. Because if the 911 system is theirs, then that's nothing to really argue about. The main thing I'm concerned about is making sure we take care of the floor plan. Do you have any questions, comments, or statements?
Yeah, I would just add to that what they've agreed to across the road is the statement that just says nothing will change about the 911 system or use of it without by implementation of this contract before or after, and it would require an interlocal agreement to make changes. And so the way, and I've seen as Mr. Valley said, I've seen the documentation that shows they're making payments, where it goes back and basically it's a collaborative project, collaborative effort. Right now, they own the equipment. We get the money for the people. They could come get that equipment right now if they wanted it. It would be kind of ridiculous because they don't have the money for the people. So the point of the project was, as I understand it, this is before my time, was to create a collaborative relationship between the sheriff's office and the police department. Of course, the whole point of the complex is collaboration, and to improve our 911 system, which desperately needs to be improved in many ways. So, and we also learned in that Easter storm the deficiencies of it. So a lot of that will be improved. They have new generators out there at this complex. Our old generator on Plaza didn't work. It would take a lot of money we got it going temporarily, but it wasn't enough because when they put it in, we didn't need that kind of power like you do today with computers and all the rest of it. So it's modernized and updated to support a 911 system the way it ought to be operated. So if we can't collaborate on that, then I don't see that we can collaborate on much of anything, but we already have been. This just enhances that collaboration. And they may have the equipment, but we have the people, So the other thing is on the floor plan, they have made some change or revisions, but I don't think it's anything dramatic. So anything that Andre and I couldn't work out. So in other words, I agree with Mr. Valley.
What's the financial impact?
Well, again, the immediate savings that we'll see somewhere in the neighborhood, I want to say 40,000 a year. We'll save more than that if we lease out the police court part of the Plaza building to somebody that pays rent and the utilities, but that hasn't been done yet. So,
Hey, with the old police department, we with the fire department, if there's some out there to try to renovate that building so they can use the other side, because remember, those guys are still sleeping in the rain. It's mold in that building. At least try to rehab some part of that building so those folks can have some places to sleep, because it's not really safe. And we put a new roof on there. We've done a lot of work to the building, but I'm pretty sure, Mayor, the condition of the building over there. That's one of the reasons why the police department trying to get out surveillance.
that's a good idea. So I guess, Andre, what we need is a motion to allow us to proceed with some, is that right?
Yes, to finalize. They've already approved it into the agreement, unless they've changed their mind. We just need a motion for us to finalize the issues about the floor plan and other things. And the 911 system. 911 system language is going to be plenty vanilla. And what I mean by vanilla is what I'm quoting what the mayor said, that they're saying that there won't be a change in the way we do it. We're just going to have one room with one 911 system. And so the 911 system, in their eyes, of course, I don't know exactly how much they owe, but a significant amount of money is still owed on the 911 system. But yes, Mayor, the only thing we need to do is them to acknowledge that there's a change in the floor plan, and that they give us the authority to finalize the final agreement. They're still on board with completing the project. Mr. Turner and the chief were supposed to provide data as to what's the cost of the move and all that, but neither one of them are here tonight. But that doesn't have anything to do with it. They had already approved it in spite of that. But I just wanted to remind you, Mayor, that they wanted that information.
Yeah, and it won't be totally cost-free, but we're going to do as much of that in-house as we can without having to hire a lot of movers and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they have a number. I haven't heard a dollar amount that sounded prohibitive anyway, because we are going to try to use our own vehicles and our own people as much as we can. So what we need is a motion. Andre, say that one more time. You say it a lot better than I do.
The motion is to reaffirm that the city will enter into a contract with the county under the terms that we previously agreed, amending it amending what we approved relating to 911 and floor plan, and then give the mayor and I the authority to finalize the issue regarding the floor plan. That's the only issue that's in dispute.
Okay, you've heard Mr. Valley. Is there a motion? No, is there a motion to allow Mr. Valley and us to proceed accordingly? Okay, hearing no motion.
So
We'll move
moved.
along. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Did somebody make
So
a
moved.
motion? Was that
I
Ms.
did.
Davis? I think Ms. Davis moved that we'll allow the mayor and city attorney to proceed with negotiations to include any changes to the agreement on behalf of the city. Is there a second?
Joe St. Columbia, I'll second the motion.
Mr. St. Columbia seconds the motion. Any other conversation, discussion? If not, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes,
Crockett, Franklin,
Some of y'all are breaking up on me.
I had Davis and St. Columbia said yes. I had no response from Crockett, Franklin, or Etherly, and Ford is absent.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Mine will be a yes.
Yes, okay. Crockett,
Mine will be a yes.
Franklin. Mr. Franklin. Okay, 4 yes, 2 absent.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And Mr. Valley and I will get together and report to you as soon as we come up with something, hopefully very soon. The main issues there, as with any move, you have to plan things, and it's hard to plan until the ink is dry, as they say. So thank you very much for that. All right, our last item on the agenda is Mr. St. Columbia.
Mayor,
For
before you said the last item, I have something I need to say when we get through with this.
Okay. All right. The next to last item on the agenda then, or the last item on the printed agenda, the code enforcement update. Shoot, I just lost it, but it was an update on code enforcement and I think blight removal. Mr. St. Columbia, that you asked to be put on the agenda. Would you like to be recognized?
yes, sir. I've had several people contact me, and they just wanted some type of, since we've had so much debris and so many things happening in the community, that they wanted some idea as to what our plan is, if we have a plan, and what the plan is to clean up some of these places that are really in desperate need of these old dilapidated houses and all. They just wanted some kind of report. They've not heard anything lately since we've had so much of this other stuff. So I just asked that someone give a report on it. Thank you.
And Mr. Greg Williams is here. It would make it easier. He just came by my house and we're going to do it this way. So I'm going to ask Mr. Williams to give a report on code enforcement, and then I'll follow up with some comments.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Morning.
Good evening.
All right. We done tore down 32 homes, whatever. And our goal is to, the bulldozer been down for 3 years. And once it get up to running, our goal is to get the doors and clear those properties out. Right now, we're going around Bob and those guys doing a lot of cutting properties. We coming back behind them and spraying them and doing stuff like that, trying to keep the grass down.
So you said a bulldozer been down for 3 years.
Yes.
So how you all tearing houses down?
Huh.
We we tore down the house with the backhoe, but we're gonna use the bulldozer to keep the area clean and stuff like that.
Okay, so let me ask this question. What houses have you all torn down in the last 30 days?
So what now? Come back,
What
Mr. Franklin.
houses have you all torn down in the last 30 days?
Due to the wellness stuff, we haven't torn down in houses.
So can you give me a list of the 30 houses you all have torn down? Is there a list of this? Because there are 2 on Cedar Drive that I've been getting calls about. I'm trying to see if you so what areas have y'all been targeted?
I mean, we've been targeting areas all over town, but there's houses everywhere. Need to be torn down all over the city. Some of these houses we can't tear down because we don't have the right equipment, like if it's brick and all that kind of stuff, you know. But it's list homes, probably about 300 homes that need to be torn down. But we tore down a total like 30 homes.
So before you all tear this house down, are you testing for having somebody come in and test for asbestos and things like that? Because I know when you all first started tearing houses down, you all tore down a house that was full of asbestos, and then you all came back and burned it. Yes, we're doing it also. So who's doing the testing, and why would y'all tear down a house that's full of, they're trying to have, it was full of asbestos? Someone's supposed to come in and tear those houses down. It's qualified to do that. We're not supposed to do that.
Right. I have a torn down in the house that full of asbestos.
You all have. Maybe not you, but the administration tore down the house. I think it's Miss Verna Boyd's house. The big house on, I think that's right behind the Malco Express, right there across from that port, well, whatever it is. Yeah. Y'all tore the house down because the woman came and complained about the house. I don't know.
That's
I can't.
for my time. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, but
Well, I can, if you're talking about that house.
yes, I didn't say him.
I didn't say him. Specifically that house. Right. My recollection from the previous code enforcement person was it was tested at we have had some development on that case, was dismissed in federal court this past week. So, you know, as you know, she sued the city shortly after that. That was a house that y'all voted to condemn. And I think Mr. Valley and I presented a case that it was unsafe and before the council, and it was approved, and we acted swiftly to get it torn down. And she sued the city, and just this week we were notified that the federal judge dismissed the case.
No, man, I think that's a case. But Mayor Hollowell did that lawsuit.
Right. That's what I think. Because she asked for more time.
Yeah, that was before you. That was she asked for more time, and she talked to Mayor Hollowell. He said he gonna give more time, but the next day tore the house to the ground. Is what that case was about. No, Mr. Valley. No, this was
the house that
this Mayor Smith became mayor.
I think the house Mr. Franklin's talking about happened when I was mayor, and she sued us for that. And it was my understanding, but I did not read the whole lawsuit that was dismissed, but it was Boyd versus Helena-West, and I thought it was regarding that property. If it was another property before my time, I apologize.
Yeah, she had 2 or 3 properties torn down right there together. It was like she felt the city would target her because it was 2 or 3 properties like bam, 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 right there together.
Well, I'm gonna defer to you, Mr. Attorney. Well, anyway, some of her properties she sued about. One of her lawsuits was dismissed this week.
Yeah, and that's I had some of the agenda about that, as well as I talked to Ms. Rams about it, but you know, we're targeting people about their property. What about our property? How is that we can be on these people about their property, and you ride past this? You know, I see they cut the sanitation grass today, but ride by over there by the mayor's office, all those bricks and stuff. That's, look at the parks, the west end of the park, the Waddell Sims Park. Look at the Dunnings Park over here in Helena. What are we doing about that? We should be good housekeepers ourselves. Look at our property.
Mhm.
So the code enforcement not taking on our property. Mayor,
Well-
you run day-to-day. Excuse me. You run day-to-day operation. You ride around, look at these parks. Ride around, look at some of our property. We should take care of our property.
Well, Mr. Franklin, if you would, of course, I've already done that, and
Done what?
I've already looked at our property, and I've already brought it up to various entities. The bricks belong to the A&P Commission, and I've asked them to inquire. I asked Ms. Cunningham, that she's gone now, to inquire about what we could do to sell them or move them away from Ohio Street, because they are an eyesore. So I have actually taken action on that, but the A&P Commission will have to act to actually move them, unless we want to go ahead and sell them ourselves, but they belong to the A&P Commission. The signs in North Helena Park, the same way. We have actually done some things to spruce up the park, and we've asked others to come and help paint that sign in North Helena particularly. And then we've also tried to apply for some grants to get some money to come spruce them up as well. So it's definitely something that's on my radar screen, and has been since long before I became mayor.
Okay, so this have you told anybody about the Dragon and Woodland? They were supposed to do all these great things over there on Washington Street. Have they picked up and moved? Have they left? Because there's no action. I was over there yesterday looking at that part. You got weeds growing all in the back of it. If we can't cut it, bid it out to somebody to keep it cut, because we want people to come into our community and see that we're working. Those parks are right off of those parks. The park, the Waddell Sims Memorial Park is right off the 49 highway, where people ride through there. They see it. The fence is all torn down. I thought that Dragon and Woodland was gonna come in and party with us, but we don't even know if Dragon and Woodland is still here, because you haven't given us an update on that either.
Well, that property is owned by Dragon Woodland, still owned by Dragon Woodland. One of the things that I have talked with city council members about is that the crime problem they faced over there was something that they had a real problem with. And about that time, we had the COVID issue came up, and the Chinese ports that they relied on were closed, and the market for lumber dropped. However, so you don't see the trees out there that you once saw, because of the market, because of the economy, what's happened with lumber. And then they were very frustrated with repeated criminal problems that we had in that vicinity, especially theft. And then, of course, their employees witnessed the gruesome double homicide that happened on Washington Street last year, which was pretty traumatic for them. So it's certainly something that's been on our radar screen. They have not sold the property, and they don't intend to. If the market comes back and we can improve our law enforcement situation over there, then nothing would make me happier, of course, than to see them come back, and then to try and we were always going to try to use that as a catalyst to redo that neighborhood, and basically a neighborhood renewal project. All of that was tied to the jobs that Dragon Woodland had here. Every bit of it, the road, the parks, the housing, all of it was tied to the fact that they were bringing much needed jobs back to that sawmill. So with the economy and the other issues, and the fact that the market has shrunk, then their presence there has shrunk, but they still own the property, and we hope they're going to come back when the market resumes, and we can resume our dreams for that area. So Dragon Woodland.
So we own the park, though. We own the park. The park still needs to be cut, even if they're not out there. There's a walk.
The problems with some of our parks, as you know, we've had a lot of rain, in the last several months, and there's those parks have been waterlogged and difficult to mow, and there've been lots of snakes and poison snakes and everything else in those parks, so we don't want them in there anyway because of the COVID situation. Has made it off limits. As soon as it's dry enough, we're going to get in there and mow them like we always do.
But it's been
Mr. Franklin, we have other members of the council, so can you ask?
I mean,
a few more
I
questions?
understand that you take up quite a bit of time as well. But
Well, I'm trying to answer your
my
questions.
thing is this.
Between the two of us, nobody else gets that word in edgewise. And
Well,
Mr. St. Columbia asked for this to be on the agenda. I don't think he's had a chance to ask many questions at all. So just all I'm doing is telling you, I'll give other people a chance if you will.
Maybe you be quiet, son.
It goes for you too, Mr. Franklin. Are you done, or do you have anything else?
You know, y'all have a great night, because I don't want to be confrontation with you, Kevin Smith. So you all have a good night, because that's the problem we have now. You know all the answers, but ain't nothing getting done in this community. You know everything. You're the smartest person that don't know anything about this community. And that's why we're in the shake we're in. That's why Dragman wouldn't have left, because you lied like you was gonna have security doing all that over there, and you couldn't come through with it because you don't communicate with us. So you all have a great night, because I'm not gonna let you win, and I'm not gonna get upset with you. But you all have a great night. But you know what, Kevin? You're gonna need the council. So keep smiling, and y'all have a good night.
Wait, Chris, because wait.
I'm tired of arguing with you.
Mayor.
I'm not arguing with you, Chris. I'm just trying to answer your question. Mayor. Well, Ms. Crockett, is this about the?
Yeah.
No matter what it's about.
Is this about the issue that's on the agenda right now?
No. Well, yeah, overtime.
Well, let's go back to that.
We didn't appropriate money for the code enforcer to get his overtime.
Give me just a minute. Let me make sure we finish up on this issue. Mr. St. Columbia, do you have any other comments or questions?
Sir, I don't have any further questions. Thank you, sir.
I wanted to add to that report, so nobody accuses me of not informing the council, that Mr. Jones, Bob Jones, has said we've torn down more houses in the last 6 months than we have in the last 6 years. We've had that dozer down for 3 years. Almost two of those were before I became mayor, waiting on a $3,000 part. So we're trying to get that ready. As soon as I found out about it, we're getting it back so we can also clean up the lots after they've been closed down or torn down. We're updating our GIS mapping project. That's what you see when you go on the county website to see who owns a property, but it has many more uses, and that information itself is actually out of date because the city has not updated our GIS information for the state. Code Enforcement Office has been able to, the last report I got last week was we are at 80%. They've been waiting for years and years and years for the city. The county's been mostly done. It's just the city's part that hasn't been done. And of course, our part's the biggest part. The Code Enforcement Office division has been in charge of that, and they've done a very good job. We're at 80%. They have to go door to door to verify addresses. That's going to have a lot of applications for crime. 911 system will be accurate because it's based on that GIS information. A host of other things. So we also, I think one of the things Mr. Franklin mentioned earlier was that our business permits would be down because of the COVID thing. At this point, anyway, we're actually ahead. We're, I think it's 40. We're at 47,000, something like that. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number, but you should have it. I think we sent that out.
Okay, Mayor, we done changed the whole subject.
No, we're still on code enforcement. We have over $3,000, I believe, almost $3,000 more in business permits that have been collected this year because we had people actually going out and sending letters and following up to actually collect them than we were at this time last year.
Who sends the letters out? And the city hall is closed. So how are they getting the
We
letters?
have a computer software system. Ms. Dallas Smith sent a lot of those out earlier this year, and now that she's gone, we're having to reorganize how we do that software system. But our guys in the office go out and actually collect the money and bring it back, or have them come in and remind them. And it's been a very effective tool for raising money. And like I said, we're actually ahead of where we were this time last year. So it's been a good thing.
Is there
The lawsuit was dropped. I think that's pretty much it, but we have a long way to go. And what people need to understand, that's sometimes difficult to understand, is it is a very spread out community. It's actually 2 cities that have merged, and we still have a lot of blight, and it takes time to get to them, because you do have to go through legal process. And by the way, while I'm saying that, Andre Valley has done a very good job of working with our code office to check off that legal list and make sure we're doing things legally. So thank you, Mr. Valley, for that. That's a critical component of making our code enforcement work. Are we there yet? Not by a long shot, but we have gone really far in that direction compared to we were even a year ago. So that's the update that I had. And now, Ms. Crockett, you're recognized. Ms. Crockett.
Okay, we did not appropriate. You said that you didn't pay the overtime and code because we didn't have no money. You never said anything about us appropriating money for that young man to be paid his money.
Well, I'm not sure how much that is.
You didn't know how much it was for the thing. You did an estimate on how much it was for the fire department.
Ms. Crockett, actually, Derek Turner, our treasurer, did that working with the fire department.
What I'm saying, but tonight you did not know. You did not know. I'm talking. You did not know the correct amount. So what's the difference why we can't just appropriate what it is to pay him his overtime and not to go above?
Because we don't know what that amount is, because Mr.
You don't know how much it is. You don't know how much it is for the fire department.
But Mr. Turner,
you have an estimate. They know how much they owe him for overtime.
Mr. Turner did an estimate and sent it to you, and I'd feel more comfortable if he did. If you would like to give code enforcement overtime, then
I'm just saying to pay the man for his overtime that he has already worked. You giving it to somebody that does not deserve it. You told us that the $2,000 extra that he was making was for him being the dog catcher. Now he gets $2,000 extra and then gets 20 to 30 hours a pay period of overtime. And that's coming out of street and sanitation, where I don't know. And I asked the question earlier, nobody told me. I don't think that it's even legal to be paying him out of street and sanitation if he's the code enforcer.
Yes, ma'am.
He does not have a job description as a dog catcher.
Well,
that is not part of his job description. So we're just paying him illegally.
Well, you said a lot of things in that statement, but the truth is we don't have an amount, and I would be more than happy to give you a report in 2 weeks.
So you want this man to wait 2 weeks to get his overtime that he's already worked for? No, that he's already worked for.
Ms. Crockett, I'm the mayor. I'm not city council.
Okay, I know.
No, ma'am. City council appropriates money.
We did not approve any overtime for the dog catcher, but he getting the overtime for the dog catcher.
Yes, you did.
Come on, man.
No,
what
that's not true.
But I'm saying he's not the dog catcher, man. He's not the dog catcher.
He is the dog catcher. He's the only certified dog catcher we have for the city.
But that's not his job description. Mr. Valley, can you please help me with this?
Yes, I think the thing is, once he became code enforcement officer, he should be getting paid from the code enforcement line item so we can have a clean budget, but we're not pulling from one line item to another. As it relates to it, either one of them is working overtime. If they worked, if they need to be paid, the council needs to appropriate the money to pay them. Once the employee who's the former he's the former dog catcher became the code enforcement, he should be, all his pay should be reflected in code enforcement, so it doesn't appear that it's being hidden or pulled from some other line item. As a general notion, it's all general funds, but we're talking a specific line item, and so I think for clarity, it needs to all come from the same line item so that we won't be going back and forth and taking money from street and sanitation that should be in code and et cetera. And to the extent that he's been paid our street and sanitation, you're probably appropriate that in the code enforcement position so we have it clean. Now, I understand he has dual responsibilities. He's the only certified dog catcher, but his job and the budget is that he is code enforcement. Now, as it relates to it, the mayor can assign and do other things, but for the clarity and the cleanliness of the budget, it should all come from code enforcement. It should come from that line item. I think the practical issue is the same as earlier. I think the money needs to be appropriated, one, for that line item to be reflected in the code enforcement budget, whatever he's been paid in the past. Two, so the employee who has worked overtime will get paid for it, so we won't have a Fair Labor Standards Act lawsuit against us relating to that employee. And three, you pull out a reasonable look at the overtime for code enforcement. I don't think there's been any real overtime for code enforcement when these issues that we have now, especially with the storm that happened Easter and all those issues, there was a lot of work to be done in code enforcement, and there probably likely reason to be some overtime that's going to have to be had in that department. And so, Ms. Crockett, the heart of your issue is appropriating money for the employee who did work. I think you all need to do that, whatever it is. And the second thing, I think when you come back in the next meeting, you need to clean up whatever the other code enforcement officer with the senior salary has been paid. That needs to be appropriated in the code enforcement line items versus the sanitation. And if the mayor assigns him to do it because of his skill set, because his background, then so be it. But they need to come out of the line item for code enforcement.
Well, let me respond.
Thank you, because that's really was what else I needed to hear.
There are a lot said there. Of course, animal control is partially a code issue. First of all. Secondly, it's not an audit violation. So if it's not an audit violation, I don't see how it could possibly be a legal violation. Thirdly, we're saving money.
Let's stop for a second. I didn't say it was a legal violation.
I didn't say, I know you said for clarity, and I think that's perfectly fine if that's what the council wants to do. We can move overtime or provide overtime for code enforcement. And thirdly, I do supervise code enforcement. I'm not aware that I've approved overtime out of the code enforcement budget. So I'm not exactly aware. I know that there's been overtime attempted, but none that I've approved that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong about that and there's overtime that I've approved that's owed, then yes, it would be like the fire department, but I'm not aware of what it would be or how much it would be. And I would want to review those timesheets and let Mr. Turner make a report to you on what that would be. And then finally, if you want to start paying overtime in the code department, even though we just had a long conversation about spending too much overtime, then that's your prerogative. You're the council. It's your job to do the appropriation, not me. But I can't sign that check if you don't appropriate it. So that, that's all I can say about that. If you want to do that, then do it. Nothing's stopping you. Okay, any other conversations about tonight? Any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. St. Columbia moves adjournment. Is there a second? Second, anybody want to adjourn? Y'all want to keep meeting? Okay, I don't hear anything. So if there's no objection, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Is there an objection? Okay. No objection being heard, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good week.